Hello, everyone. How are you today? I want to say it is still good afternoon. That's right. I got a little stuck. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for another segment of Creative Conversations. I'm Andrea. I'm the program director at SCAN. And before I introduce you to my co-host, just a few pieces of info. I just want to let everyone know that we are recording. And we will share, this will be archived on SCAN's Facebook page, and we will send a link, everyone the YouTube link, so you'll have access to it if you want to watch it again, or if you do want to share it. We've got lots and lots of questions today for Julia. But if you have a question or two that you would like to ask, on the bottom of your screen there is the chat function. So you can, if you want to, you can go ahead and write something in the chat function, write a question. Can't guarantee we'll get to everything. We will, of course, do our best. But that's the best thing to do. Just put it right in the chat box. So let me introduce you to Domenica Como. She's my co-facilitator.
Thank
Hello.
you. Hello, everyone, and welcome. This afternoon's guest speaker and artist is quite unique in that she is both a visual and a performing artist. In particular, this afternoon, she'll show you her fiber art. This art reveals abstract and sometimes surreal art. She will talk about the basic geometric and organic form she uses, and then breaks out into the traditional. Her work has been featured in many exhibitions, galleries, and various literary magazines. I would like to introduce prize-winning, multidisciplinary artist, Julia Muench. Hello, Julia. Hello, Julia, and welcome.
Hey, Julia.
Nice to have you on board. So we'll begin today. Maybe you can tell us a little about yourself, and also if you can tell us a little bit about embracing shifts, which is the title of this program, and what do you mean exactly by that term? We're going to dive right in.
I'll tell you exactly what I mean. Hello, everybody. I just want to give a little shout out to the West Coast. We've got a couple people that hopped on board from California, I believe.
Great.
So that's exciting.
Yay.
Just want to say hello.
Hello.
My artistic friends out there. Okay, embracing the shift. Well, we're in a shift. I mean, we're just in this huge shift right now. It's very exciting. It's a time, I feel like it's a time of a lot of potential and a lot of great things happening. So that's how I'm looking at it right now, and I'm embracing it. For me, the way I embrace it is through my creative outlets.
So you're putting a nice positive spin on it.
Yes.
That's good.
So does your artwork come from the emotional state or the intellectual state of mind when you're making this shift?
I mean, it's a little bit of both. I would say it depends. And in some of the pieces that I'm going to be showing you today, that Andrea, she has some of them that we'll pull up. Okay. I can explain a little bit more about that.
Great.
Now, Julia, we have a short video. Would you like me to show that now so that the folks can get a kind of a really a much better idea of exactly what you're doing, and then we can really talk about it? Should I do that?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see if technology is going to cooperate. Talk about embracing the shift, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's this one right here.
You must be an art lover. What a great thing to be. Hello, my name is Julia Muench, and I am a multidisciplinary artist. My main focus these days is on fiber art, especially the original quilts that I make. I'm a working artist living in New Jersey for over 22 years. Still, I consider myself to be an emerging artist as far as showing in galleries or other exhibits. I try to reconnect to the outdoors and nature on a regular basis because it really motivates me to find ways to be more creative. Sometimes when I'm out in nature, I might find a pattern that I'm drawn to or some kind of elegant form, and this might become the start for a new piece. When I'm creating, I try to concentrate on different types of outcomes. Focusing like this can take me to a whole new place. I find sometimes that starting out within a set of boundaries that I set for myself can allow me to break out of those boundaries. But I have to find that it makes sense aesthetically. Sometimes I'm asked about a certain piece, is it a painting? Yes, it is a painting in the sense that the materials I'm using, the fabrics and thread, are my palette. Whatever forms I do end up choosing, I really like how the parts and colors play off of each other within the whole. I really try to aim for luminance and a sense of movement in whatever I'm creating. I love working with color and form and experimenting with what will work well together. On my outdoor journeys over the years, I have taken literally thousands of nature photos. Photography has helped me tremendously to visualize whatever I'm working on and just having a clearer insight into my fiber designs. I enjoy being inventive with my pieces, and many times I go beyond a set of boundaries. My body of work as a whole is quite varied, and I try to be realistic in the sense of what I think is going to work best for an exhibit or what pieces would also work really well in the print form. Now I'm working with print designs that I've created from my original quilts, and have selected a few to be created into card and stationery format. when you get a chance, please go to my Etsy site to see my art quilts and art stationery at the Wonder Piece shop. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Okay, beautiful. I hope that gives everyone who's not familiar with Julia a much better indication of what you're doing and what you're all about. And of course, spectacular use of color there, right?
Thank you.
Oh, gosh.
How does color play into your artwork? How do you evolve to that?
How does it play in? You know, it's not something that I plan necessarily. It's I don't wake up and say, okay, today I'm going to use purple and blue or something like that. But yeah, no, color is a huge part of what I do in my artwork. Absolutely.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Did you have any, Andrea, right now? Or I don't see any in the chat as yet. If anybody wants to add questions, please put them in the chat.
I do. I noticed something in the chat that some people said that they weren't hearing the sound, and I apologize for that. And you didn't hear it either?
No music, no.
It was turned. I have no idea why, but of course the visuals are stunning. So I don't know why technology there. But yeah, you know what I want to ask you, Julie, because obviously you've been doing this for a while, and you know I was reading about you a little bit. You grew up in South Miami, a very multicultural area, and I always think of myself. I think of, you know, that's an area where lots of color
Yes.
and a very dynamic population. And I wonder how did that influence your? Obviously, you have a love for working with color. So how does that influence your childhood? Growing up there?
Oh, well, my mother is an artist, and we were always working on some kind of project. You know, we just thought that's what everybody did. So, yeah, absolutely, color is a huge part of my artwork. To me, you know, but not just color, also form. In fact, I spend a lot of time. I grew up in a very natural environment, and I spend a lot of time going into nature, and just I get inspired by nature, natural forms that I come across, and I think some of that is shown in my work. Um, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the Fibonacci series. I don't know.
Yes.
You want to tell us a little about that?
Yeah, explain that.
Sure. I mean, I'm not an expert on it, but it's proportion in nature. It's all around us. It's, you know, in plants and animals, and just about, you know, you just have to go out and look for it. You could walk right by it and not even see it.
You have to be open to it, right?
Well, it's occurring naturally, and a lot of times we don't even look for it, but it's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself more as an artist or a designer?
Ooh. That's that's a hard question. I would say, I mean, they both kind of they both play into each other. I would say, I would say an artist.
Okay.
I would say an artist, but designing, yes, I design things all the time. I'm constantly coming up with ideas of things. I mean, I've got so many ideas I
Yeah.
can't even keep up with them.
Was fiber arts your first medium, or was it painting, or?
As a child, we would work with watercolor. We'd go outside and paint using all kinds of different mediums. So I was a
When did it shift to fabric?
Oh, when did it shift? Well, it stopped actually when I was probably when I went to college. I remember I took a ceramics course. I signed up as a music major, took a ceramics course because I love ceramics, and my teacher basically told me, he asked me, "What's your major?" I said, "It's music." He said, "Oh, well, I think you should focus on that."
Wow.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Well, he should see you today.
So it was fine because I mean it didn't really bother me, but it's just funny. It's funny.
You know what I'm interested in? The process of of your fabric art.
Hmm.
Is the image in your head first, and then do you cut the fabric? Obviously you sew it after you put it together, but if you could tell me more about the process.
Sure, sure. Well, sometimes I'll see it. I'll be attracted to some form. Okay. And Andrea, you have a couple pictures that you can pull up. I guess we can start with the birthing of ideas. Okay. That is a form that came out of another form. So I was really obsessed for a long time with the radiant. I would say it's the radiant form. I don't know if you have. Yeah. Okay. There we
That
go.
the one?
Yes, that's the one. So this form came from. Let's see. You can make the pictures on the left a little bit bigger if you want. That's fine. It's okay. And then the third one, okay, this is my birthing of ideas. And this one is a recent one, piece of mine that was created, I would say last year in 2019, which really wasn't something that I planned, but it kind of emerged. And I don't know if you can see, but 3 down, there's another, it's called Floating in Space. No, the one above that, it's blue and gold. Yeah,
That one?
that.
Okay.
Yes. This one I created, this is all fiber art. And this one I call it Floating in Space. And this one I created a few years ago, and I started working with this form, which some people call it a mariner star or a starburst. I mean, you can call it whatever you want. But I worked with that form for a long time, perfecting it. It takes a long time. It takes me, I mean, this one took me a few months to make, believe it or not. So it's not
Well,
like,
yeah. I'm
paint.
looking at all the texture in the in the background colors, the blue and the gold, and I'm just imagining how many hours and hours that would have taken you.
Yeah, it takes many hours.
Many hours. It's
And they
gorgeous.
and they turned into weeks and then they turned into months. So I would say this one took me a good 5 to 6 months, but it was one of my first ones. Um, okay, and then going back now, go to the second one if you can. This one, Snowflower. Snowflower, again, you see the same radiant form, but I decided to try arranging it in different ways. So this snowflower emerged from that.
Well, while you're there, we have a chat question came in. Could you ask Julia how music has influenced her quilting? Because some of them look so musical.
Oh yes, thank you. That's really a compliment. Yeah, well, music has influenced my whole life, and there are a lot of connections between them. To me, music, art, they're all part of the same thing. So I don't really separate them out so much. Music, I would say, as far as the process, music is a slower process. You jump onto YouTube and you watch different videos, how-to videos. We all do it. I mean, we all love YouTube, right? And I find there are a lot of videos just where they're very fast paced and it's like boom, 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 here you go, here's your product. It's like
Yeah.
you can have this in 3 hours or you can have this in 1 hour. kind of a thing. My process is very slow, and I think that that has been influenced through my practice of music, which music, when you're learning an instrument, you learn it slowly, and then you build up speed over time. But that how should I say it? The process of being slower is very difficult for a lot of people. I mean, I've been teaching for years, and that it's you might as well ask them. If you ask somebody to slow down in their playing, you might as well ask them to, you know, I don't know. It's very hard for people to slow down. So we're in
But
a
you seem very disciplined about your work because it's just so perfectly executed.
I mean, there are times I go slowly when I work, but then it actually saves me tons of time of having to, redo the whole thing.
Oh, all right, fair enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the slower I go, the more enduring it's going to be. What can I say?
All right. Is there another one you want me to point out here?
Yeah, can you show us? Someone asked here, can you show, if Julia can show the amazing quilts behind her and tell us a little bit about them?
Oh, the one behind me is
Oh,
this
here, let me stop sharing. Yeah,
one on the wall.
yeah, beautiful.
Okay, yeah, this one I haven't even named it yet. I'm calling it Sea Creature because it started out
Like an anemone, I can't even say it. An anemone?
I don't know what it is.
That's what it looks, yeah.
Wasn't trying to make it any particular sea creature, but I'm calling it that right now because I don't really have a name for it. So this one is brand new, and I'm still putting on some of the beadwork on the outside of it. So yeah,
Julia, is your work all hand done?
all hand done. No, I piece together. It's pieced together on a machine, on a sewing machine. But before any of that happens, I have to cut the fabric. First, I have to choose the colors. So you go back to choosing the colors. So I have many colors, and I try putting them side by side and seeing what's going to work. And then I cut the fabric. Then I have to lay out the design. So I might spend days just laying out the design. I'll come back the next day and say, that's not working. So what was working for me the day before is not working for me right now. So you change it.
And how did you acquire these excellent sewing skills? You've obviously been at this for quite some time.
Yes. My mother and my grandmother. Yes.
And so you learned directly from them?
Yes. My grandmother was an amazing seamstress, both of my grandmothers. And she taught me how to sew when I guess I was about 12 or 13. And she was so funny. She would say, "A good seamstress always rips." She'd say that. And we'd say, "Why? We don't want to rip it," because she would teach. She taught me and my cousins how to sew. Clothing. We were working on clothing. We didn't even know what quilts were. I mean, that wasn't even a concept in my mind. And so I sewed clothing for myself all through high school. And then when I had my children, I sewed for my children, my daughter especially. And then I really didn't start. I took a small class locally in quilting, just to find out what it was all about, how you cut it. I mean, it's kind of a dangerous skill because you have it's almost like a pizza cutter. It's like
Yeah.
It's very sharp. Okay, you could cut your fingers with it. You could do some serious damage. And then, of course, the sewing machine and just using a needle. I don't use a thimble, okay, which is bad. Please use a thimble if you're going to sew. I don't. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but it's more comfortable for me. But yeah, sometimes I stick myself with the needle. So cutting, using the sewing machine, you have to be very careful. You can't be in a rush when you're doing these things.
So at what point did you start making quilts? How were you drawn to this? Well, you were making clothing. Okay. So you were sewing, but that's another shift for you, right? At what point did you start doing this sort of work?
I don't really sew clothing anymore.
Okay.
You know, at what point? I would say it was probably about 15 years ago that I started really trying out the whole quilt idea, and it was just to try it out for fun and see. It wasn't a serious prospect.
But at some point, it obviously became serious.
Yes.
And so, what made that happen, or how did you recognize that? Oh, I'm pretty good at this. This is something.
Okay. Very recently, actually.
Not the answer we were expecting.
Um, last year, about, I'd say a year and a half ago, um, a young couple came to me, good friends of mine came to me and said, "We want to commission you to make a quilt for us for our home because we want art, artisans to make things for our home." That's what they had decided. They didn't want to buy things from a store. They wanted people to make things for them, which I thought was just fantastic. So I spent from the time I met with them and we decided to go ahead with it took about 6 months. And their quilt it's not showing because it's theirs. It belongs to them. So it started there. I would say it started there. And at the time, I had a hand injury because I was performing. I got a wrist injury, and I couldn't play anymore. So this was about a year and a half, 2 years ago. So it just kind of it was just happenstance. I couldn't play the piano. I couldn't perform. They wanted me to make something for them. So it just started to transition. Then I made the birthing of ideas, which happened like almost right after. It was overlapping. And birthing of ideas, I was very happy with. And I entered it into a juried exhibition, and it got in. To my total surprise, it did.
Your total surprise, yeah.
I was surprised. I thought, wait a minute. And then I don't know, in the video, I just want to tell everybody out there, you can go to YouTube, you can watch the video, you'll hear the sound, you'll hear the entire narration.
I'll send the links out to the video, so not to worry. There'll be a thank you note from Zoom, and I'll include all of that in it. So you didn't miss it. Don't worry. You won't miss it.
We have another chat question if you're ready for one.
Sure.
Someone asked here, do you start with a drawn design, then go to the fabric, or do you just cut the fabrics?
I just cut the fabrics. I mean, I definitely most of the time have a drawn out picture. I draw with colored pencils.
Uh-huh.
I draw it out so I can get an idea of the colors. Now, I may change my mind as I'm going along as far as the colors go. And when you're working slowly, changes happen. Okay.
Of course.
Sometimes you can start with an idea, and then halfway through, it turns into something completely different. And that's what happened with this sea creature here. This was not supposed to be sea creature, but it ended up being.
Right. Right, I can see that. Now, all the fabric, you must have a great inventory of fabric.
Yeah.
How do you acquire your fabrics?
And where do you store it?
It's all up.
And are the beads on hand, all your additives, I'll call it.
I'm collecting beads now. The fabric I go through pretty fast, surprisingly. I have to reorder fabric like 4 times a year because I go through it.
Okay.
Most of my fabric, I have a specific kind that I like. Most of it is hand dyed batik fabrics. Some of them are hand painted. I'm not really into the little tiny prints or printed, very sharp printed fabric. So I do use some of those, but the majority of my fabric is hand dyed and 100% cotton. I don't use polyester of any type. The thread I use is rayon, which I find very easy to work with. and I just love the way it's easy to work with.
So Julia, are you on a constant hunt? I'm going to call it a hunt for fabric, and then you see things that you like, and then you have it on hand, or do you have your idea and then you say, "Oh, well, I know what I want to do, so now I have to go out and get the fabric."
Most of the time, I'll be going through my fabrics and organizing them because I like to organize them in a rainbow color. Or
Color wheel, the
I'll
color
do
wheel.
the solids in a rainbow color, and then
Yeah.
I have certain methods of organizing them. I try to use what's at hand. Sometimes I run out. Like one thing that I just ran out of is gray. Now, you'd think gray, who likes, I'm like, but gray is a very important color
Mhm.
because you're contrasting. Black is a very important color that you can run out of. And let me tell you, lately it's hard to find certain colors. I just noticed over the past few months. Um, so yeah, and there are only certain manufacturers or vendors that I will purchase from.
So somebody had a question for you. They were wondering where you were juried.
This was up in Duxbury, Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Yes.
Okay.
They have a beautiful arts center up there. It's an entire museum, and we went up. There was an opening, and then it also won a prize. But it was considered, they had it in their mixed media, and
Mixed
there were
media.
there were no other fiber artists there. I was the only one. Yeah. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that surprises me. So it sounds like you still think of yourself as an emerging star. You're still working on your craft.
Oh, absolutely. I will always be emerging, I hope.
And what is the largest piece that you've done at this point?
The largest piece is probably the one that you don't see that was commissioned. That was the largest piece.
How big was that?
Ooh, that was, oh gosh. I would say 40, it's 60 by 80, but I could be completely off.
Big.
Well, that's pretty big.
It's getting kind of big. I would say, okay, that might be slightly bigger, but it was the size, I would say it's the size of if you're going to put a quilt on top of a bed, like a double bed, not a queen size.
All right. Well, that's big, right?
Pretty big.
Are all your pieces one of a kind? Or do you have a duplicate for
No, they're all one of a kind.
all one of a kind?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can try to, if somebody commissions me, they say, I really love this. Can you make me something similar to that? Yes, I can do that. But usually they want different colors. So we sit down and go through. I have them draw out colors, and yeah, that's how it works. And
Wow.
quilts are really a funny thing because we think of them as being utilitarian. So there's also a shift from just being a utilitarian thing that you use that you're going to throw in the washing machine, that's really pretty. And there's some amazing traditional quilts out there that are just mind-blowingly beautiful. And but that's, I don't make traditional quilts as you can see. I don't do that. I can do that. And if somebody said, "Could you make me a traditional one?" I would say yes but I probably have them look at what I already have.
Right.
And see.
Use that as a starting point. Can you tell us something about the different types of stitches that you use? I saw blanket stitch only because I know that one. What else do you?
I don't know what all these terms, stitches. Okay, what happens is when you're putting together a quilt, we think, oh, we're putting patches of fabric together.
Well, that's the traditional idea, right? Yeah.
Well, actually, that's called piecing. So
Piecing.
when you're putting all these little pieces together, okay, you're piecing it, right? That's called piecing, but the quilting part is the actual top stitching where you're putting the layers together.
Mhm.
So you have a top layer, and then on some of the quilts, not all, you have this what's called batting, which is it's like fluffy cotton,
Yeah.
and then you have the bottom, the back of the quilt. So you have at least three layers. Most of mine have four layers because I have another thin layer so that when I'm sewing, I don't just have the batting on the sewing machine. So you've got layers that have to all attach because if you pick up the quilt, they're all
Right.
going to fall apart. So then I go in, I have to hand sew all the layers together.
Right.
Okay. The quilting is the top stitching. That's what quilting is.
And how do you decide which stitches are going as part of the design?
I never want to interfere with the design. I want to enhance the design.
Mhm.
You see a lot of quilts where you see this wonderful stitching all over the design, but you can't see the design.
Yeah.
So that's not really my style. That's not my style. It's more the image of what's happening in the quilt, and I don't quilt all over, I might quilt around in a certain way, and there's a plethora of quilting actual little, it's like doodling.
Yeah.
It's like taking, and that's a skill in itself. So that's a whole other aspect.
Do you work on one quilt at a time, or can you work on a couple at a time and
I
go
work
back
on,
and forth?
sometimes I work on two or three at a time.
It kind of stops the monotony, right? It just, yeah.
I'll be working on one and then I'll get an idea for another.
Okay.
So I've got like several things going.
Yeah.
It's like reading multiple books, Donna. Put this one down, you pick the other one up. Right.
Exactly.
So we have a question, because you had, Julia, because you had talked about getting your fabrics from many different places. And the question is, what countries do you get your fabrics from?
Ooh. Well, I buy them from the United States, but I'm sure the manufacturer or they don't really manufacture them. It's the place is called. There's one that I use a lot, which is called eQuilter. Okay, I would highly recommend that company. They're out in Colorado. Um, they purchase fabric from all over the world. That's one company that I've been very happy with so far. So
I want
don't-
to go back to all your stitches because now, are those all these various stitches? And obviously you decide what's best for each quilt. They're all different, but are these mostly hand stitches or does a machine,
the machine, no, I don't quilt hand stitching, but what I do is when I'm attaching the layers together, I will pull through, and I like to attach. I choose a bead, okay, and I pull it through, and that's a way of not only adding some surface design, but it's also doing the practical task.
okay, attaching. Yeah.
So I could just leave the bead out. I don't have to put a bead in.
And how did you learn all of these stitches?
How did I learn them? You just you go, you can learn a lot.
Or how did you even know what was out there even to know that you needed to learn it?
I've taken classes, I've taken online classes, I've watched YouTube. I've
Watched your grandmothers,
You
right?
My grandmother, well, she wasn't really a quilter, but she was an amazing seamstress. And my mother also, I wanted to talk about my mother's artwork, which she is a fiber artist, and she does a lot of paintings where you have what's called a backing, and then she inserts like a fiber inside, so you get a three-dimensional effect. So yeah, I mean, sewing, people sewed around me. It was just something that went on.
Is
And
your mother an abstract artist also?
she's abstract, yes.
So we have another question, and I won't say her name, but I know who asked the question. She's asking about your beading, and this particular lady happens to be a pretty fantastic beader herself. So she's asking you, how do you decide to bead or not to bead?
To bead or not to bead. I love it. I mean, I usually just bead. I mean, if you're gonna have a no bead or a bead, what are you gonna pick? You're gonna pick the bead. Um, yeah. I usually I lately I've been putting the beadwork on. So I didn't do that in the past because it didn't really occur to me. It didn't occur to me that
It adds another dimension.
sure.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. Now, if someone, people who might be watching us today, and maybe they're curious about how can they enhance their own quilting skills, any resources that you can offer people so that they can, come up to aspire to be like you?
Oh, um, well, I would say, gosh, you can join quilting groups. Every state in the nation, of course, now we can't really get together and do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Julia, do
I'm
you give
sure.
lessons?
Sorry.
Do you
What
give lessons?
do I give lessons? I could. Yeah, I do. I yes. I don't give sewing lessons at the moment. No.
Okay.
All right. So good to know, though.
Yeah. Great.
Yes, I could certainly help somebody with that whatever project they're working on.
Mhm.
Well, one of the questions that I always like to ask, photographers or painters, but I think it will apply to you as well. I always want to know, do you paint what you see or do you see what you paint? So
Ooh.
I guess do you have it already in your mind's eye what you're going to do, or is it just something that kind of evolves and you say, I'm going to go with this?
Um, I would say for the most part, I get an idea in my head, and it may have been inspired from taking a walk and seeing a nice pine cone. you know? Um, I'm not saying I'm going to make a quilt, but look at this. This is beautiful. And if you look at plants and you look at the insides of flowers, you have this. I don't know if you can see it, but I love this effect
Mhm.
that happens in the plant world where you have it's actually a spiral,
Yeah.
and plants have evolved to. I mean, this is a pine cone, but if you look at flowers, you look at sunflowers,
Mhm.
you will find that you'll start to see it everywhere.
So looking at that pine cone, you look at it, it strikes your imagination. You said that you get colored pencils and you'll do a little maybe quick sketch or a design. Then talk to me from the next point. What do? You got this drawing.
Okay, so let's say that I actually decide to make the pine cone, whatever. Um, okay, it's not going to be this size, obviously. Okay, so I've got to look at the components inside of this and say, oh, I see some, well, right now I'm looking at it, I see sort of triangles. So I've got to make a template for a triangle. Okay, and these triangles are in different sizes, so I may have to make several different templates of triangles in different sizes.
Okay. So
And
that you have your shape now that you're probably going to cut the fabric. Am I correct?
With the pizza wheel.
Yeah.
yes, and then I start putting the colors together. So let's say I wanted to do a rainbow pine cone.
Right.
See, I'm giving you guys really great ideas here.
Oh boy. Go ahead.
You're gonna start seeing rainbow pine cones everywhere now next year, right? In the stores.
Well, no. Thank creative conversations.
Yeah. So then I let's say I have a bunch of solid fabrics that are colored fabrics, I can put those together. Maybe I'm not gonna use all of the colors, you know? So I put one in, take one out, look at it for a while, I spend a lot of time just looking at what I'm doing,
Yeah.
believe it or not. And going away, coming back the next day, looking at it again and saying, what was I thinking? I could just cut this and pull it apart. and do it completely differently. So I'm, you know, when we talk about having a form and then breaking out of that form, okay, then it starts, to me, that's when it really starts to get interesting.
Mhm.
Because
Break
then,
out of that traditional triangular shape and just
right, I mean, you could even
Word.
take a form like this, which is, it's a spiral, it's radiant, it's a spiral, and you could do all kinds of things with it.
okay. Great.
Well, maybe someone who's more traditional would make it really follow the pine cone. But you're saying for you, it's just a guideline, like a recipe, and you're gonna do your own thing.
Right.
But that's what makes it unique, though, right? That's why your work is so unusual.
I guess it is really unusual. I
It is.
mean, yes, you could draw this and you would have a beautiful, amazing drawing.
Yeah.
If that's the kind of artwork that you want, and I mean, that's beautiful in itself. You know, it's perfect the way it is. I just want to tear it apart and do something different. But yeah, no, the initial form is what inspires me, no doubt.
So is there something in particular that you're working on these days that you can tell us about?
Sure. As a matter of fact, I would have to go grab it and show you, but I'm not going to do that. We'll do that at another session. Yeah, I'm working on. I'm always learning new techniques. Sometimes I have to go online to find out how to do them, and you could find 10 different ways to do one thing. It's like learning a new cooking skill.
Right.
So, yep, I'm working on some new things.
Wow. Oh, surprise, surprise.
And yes, surprise, surprise. Now, Andrea, there is a picture that I wanted to show everybody. It's actually a sneak peek because nobody has seen it. And I wanted to, my dream before everything started last January, I was in this gallery up in Massachusetts and everything was going great. And then I got some other pieces I got several pieces in galleries, and then the galleries shut down about a month later. So, yeah. I'm not the only one, but I was just getting it in. I was just starting to get my stuff in, and that happened. So what are you
Well,
gonna do?
before COVID, everything was different. And of course, for an artist, everything changed. Artists are still suffering, you know.
Absolutely. I'm very grateful that I can do any art at all, and just to be able to talk about art is a great privilege. And art to me is it's needed. It's not a fringe frill. It's absolutely needed and integral to society.
Oh,
That
Why do you, Donna and I certainly agree with you. And I'm curious, why do you feel that way?
because if everybody just spent an hour of their day, I mean, I know some of us don't have an hour, okay, half an hour, 5 minutes, thinking about something creative, or listening to something beautiful, some beautiful music, or going out in nature or something. I just, to me, I think a lot of problems would work themselves out. That's my philosophy. Especially now, I think that art is going to, it's gonna, psychologically, emotionally, it's gonna save a lot of people. That's my opinion. And it's a great thing to think about. Sometimes I don't want to listen to the news.
right, right.
I'm not, I don't need to. There are other things to think about in life. We need to know what's going on in the world, absolutely. But there are some other things going on, some positive things for people.
Well, I think art takes you out of all that horrible stuff, and it allows you those moments of beauty that you can enjoy, whatever your art is.
Yes.
And it could be cooking, it could be anything, right?
Could
Yeah.
be anything.
planting a garden, making a quilt.
Gardening.
I mean, this is our whole purpose here, right? Art
Yeah.
comes in so many forms.
Yeah.
And,
And
our goal is to introduce everyone to different kinds of artists.
What's that, Julia?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you didn't.
I got distracted because behind you, Andrea, it looks like you have a little quilt up there on the wall. Behind your picture, right behind.
Oh, well, you know something? It's fun. Okay, it's not a quilt. My art is photography. And for several years ago, for two solid years, I had really a spectacular garden. And for 2 solid years, I just photographed my garden every day, and it changed every day. And I had an exhibit called shameless self-promotion here, The Garden of Andrea Tarr. And that was my poster.
Aw. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
It's the repetition, right? That's there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I made it into the squares. Yeah, yeah. Like you, I'm very drawn to, geometry.
Mhm.
And I think if you see it in shadows and in animals, and think of the back of a turtle and the pine cone and tree bark. There's so many gorgeous, gorgeous patterns for an artist to draw inspiration from, right?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, it's endless. It's
And
really
I love that about your work, that you're really, obviously you're very drawn to patterns as well.
very much so. Very much so. And then what's interesting to me is I'll be drawn to a pattern and I'll say, "Oh, I can make a big thing of this pattern." It's like, and then the pattern just goes on and then, wait a minute, this is getting to be too much, So let me break it down.
Yeah.
So that's when the designing part comes in.
Well, do you ever have to say, I mean, how do you know, like a painter, at a certain point, right? You have to say, I'm done, stop. How do you decide that on a quilt?
um I'll walk by and I'll say, "Ooh, I got to put some more beads in."
Yes, that's right.
But basically it's done. If I'm selling it or if it's going somewhere, it has to be done at some point. You have to just let it go. And that's another lesson. That's a whole other thing, is when
Yes. Oh my God.
you sell, which pieces do you not sell at some point. And that's another thing that I've been doing is, putting things up for sale. So a few things. It's hard.
How does that feel? Is it because it's like these are your children in a sense? You created them.
Put it
Is
this
it
way.
hard to part with them?
Yeah, sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. But you can't just collect all of your artwork and keep it. It's not going to be anywhere. So you have to let go at some point.
Are you
And
inspired by any certain artists?
I look at artwork all the time. I mean, certain artists. Gosh, we saw an amazing exhibit in New York, the Hilma auf Klimt. I don't know
Klimt,
if you've heard of her.
Yeah.
Hilma auf Klimt. It was very inspiring. I was inspired by her work. That was in New York. Of course, you can't.
What about Sonia Delaunay? Sonia Delaunay?
Delaunay?
Yeah.
I'm not as familiar.
Okay. I see your work there, also. And she was a fabric, her and her husband, Robert and Sonia.
I'll have to write that down.
Delanay or EY?
Delaunay.
Delaunay, yeah. I can
Okay,
send you that name.
sure. As I was saying before, I didn't really say it. I was about ready to say that I would love, my dream is to have a solo show. And that was what I was hoping for in January. I was kind of aiming for that because I have enough pieces. I have plenty of pieces. So I'm working on a few places I'm hoping for. We have to see what happens over the next year.
Are you looking to start locally first or in the New Jersey area? Or?
I don't want to go too far away because then you're shipping your things across the
Right,
country.
right.
Yeah.
Well, if things ultimately will improve. We have to believe that. And so if you do wind up with a show locally, you'll have to share it with us so that we can share it with everyone else. Because that would be amazing to see, right?
A big party and music and everything, right?
I think it's a lot more fun when you do have the fun and fulfilling the opportunity to show your work so that other people can, to share it.
Yes, yes. I mean, and I just want to thank both of you because this is a way for me to share.
Yes.
So I can't have my solo show right now, but this is
You have us.
Well, you know what? It was a wonderful pleasure, to really experience your beautiful work. Seriously, it's just gorgeous. And reminding everyone we're recording this today. I'm going to send you the links and of course the link to the video that had no sound, who knows, but you'll play it on YouTube and you'll hear all the sound.
Great.
I don't know what happened there.
Yes.
yes, and you'll hear some beautiful music in
Yes.
that was that I composed, and my husband Ken Forrest and he performs the electric guitar and so piano and electric guitar. So we worked very hard to get the sound just right. He helped me with that.
Hope everyone watches it then on YouTube.
Little bonus there.
Thank you. We
Well,
appreciate
Julia, thank you very much for being with us today and for being part of Creative Conversation. It's been an absolute pleasure.
it.
I'm delighted.
Thank
And let me just share with our listeners, some coming attractions, right?
Mhm.
We've
Yeah.
got, let's see. Well, Donna, you just put your glasses on, so you must have the info.
No, it's not here.
Okay. Well, let's
in
see.
January, we have Tracy Witter, and she is an acrylic artist who will be doing a live demo for you of a winter scene.
That's going to be very interesting. Yep.
In February, we have Vinny Martini, who is from Monmouth Arts. He is their, he does the events. I can't think of his title. It's on the flyer. And
Sorry, Vinny.
sorry, Vinny, but we will get that info out. And
But
he'll
he's
be talking
great
about
personality, lots of fun. And he's going to talk about artists working within the community.
the community and how artists can get their work out there.
Yeah.
So it'll be good for all artists to see all different, levels.
Because
of
let's
art.
be serious, as an artist, right? We want to show our work. We want everyone to see it. So Vinny, that's going to be very interesting.
That's February. March, we have Tara Collins. I believe she's on tonight. I almost said her wrong name, but I got it right. I hope, Tara. And she'll be doing art journaling, which kind of relates to your fabric art. I'm sure you could agree, Julia, right? The piecing of it, only they use glue and not stitching, but they do use stitching also. So we have some good things coming up. Yeah,
We do. Well, thanks to you for scheduling all these wonderful artists.
Thank you.
Obviously, there's lots and lots of wonderful artists, and our goal is to introduce you to as many as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And of course, we're not limited anymore by geography because we have Zoom.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you all very, very much. You know what? We have to wish everyone happy holidays.
Yeah.
Stay healthy, stay safe. And again, Julia, thank you so much.
Julia, pleasure meeting you.
Pleasure for everyone. Bye, everyone.
Bye.